Well, my name is Melissa Niles. I am the Urban Ag Liaison for the South Dakota Specialty Producers Association. Thank you for joining us for Chickens Advanced Brooding with our guest, Sam Noble from Heifer International Farms in the U.S. This webinar has been funded through a conservation collaboration cooperative agreement between the Natural Resource Conservation Service, the NRCS, and the South Dakota Specialty Producers Association, SDSPA, to promote sustainable agriculture practices and environmental stewardship. Its contents are solely the responsibility of the authors and do not necessarily represent the official views of the USDA or NRCS. Good afternoon, Sam. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. So you're going to teach us everything from about chickens, about raising
Yeah.
chickens.
Yeah, definitely. Every single thing there is. Okay. Would you like me to go ahead and share my screen?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Let's see if I can figure this out. Me do that and then do this and then do that. Does that work on your end?
Yep, it looks good.
Okay, perfect. So this presentation that I put together is a presentation that I gave at the APA conference, which took place back in January of 2025. APA is the American Pastured Poultry Producers Association. So if anybody's interested in poultry, I highly recommend they join APA to have all their poultry questions answered. There's a lot of professionals in there, people who are doing it from very small scale to very large scale. And so, yeah, and so once a year they hold a conference. And let's see, so this presentation that I gave is on advanced brooding. And so a lot of people have questions on brooding. Some people aren't really sure how to get started, what proper materials you need, what are the settings you need to do for your brooder. And when I say brooder or brooding, that's basically the phase when you get your chicks in the first from day one that you get them all the way until 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks if you have layer chicks. So I work at Heifer Ranch in Heifer International, or for Heifer International. We are a nonprofit organization, and so within Heifer International, we work in 17 different countries, and so I work in the USA division. And so we have a physical location in Perryville, Arkansas. It is a real working ranch. We have pastured broilers, pastured layers, pastured turkeys. We've dabbled in ducks. We also have grass-fed cow-calf operation and woodlot pigs and grass-fed sheep. So just a little bit about Heifer, especially Heifer USA. Like I said, we're a nonprofit, so we work to end hunger and poverty while caring for the earth. Heifer Ranch itself is a center for regenerative agriculture, so we practice regenerative ag there. Everything that we do is to rebuild and regenerate the soil and the land that's there. And we also obviously work with farmer education, which is what I do heavily, and primarily in pastured poultry. We do farmer outreach and support. We do a lot of processing investment. We've worked with Cypress Valley Meats and natural state processing. We also do some market development as well. So just a little bit of an overview about what we're going to be talking about today. So we'll kind of lightly touch on the basics. We'll kind of discuss the housing and environment and the nutrition and health, as well as the management. And then if there's questions at the end, we can go over those. So the basics of brooding. So if you're brooding, there's a lot of heavy input in the beginning up front that goes into it. You have to order the chicks. You have to get your brooder ready. You have to get the bedding, the heat, make sure it's well insulated and draft free, make sure there's good lighting, you have feed, you have to have water and good air quality and obviously welfare. So these target temperatures for the day or for the age. Those are going to be their comfort zones. And so I highly suggest that you have a way to control that temperature, whether it be you manually raising and lowering any heat lamps you have, or if you have propane heaters or anything like that, you need a way to control that temperature throughout the day. And then stocking density is going to be 1/4 of a square foot per week of life. So if you're getting, quick math would be like 100 chicks. So if you're getting 100 chicks at 1/4 of a square foot, that's going to be 25 feet for their first week of life. So then you need to consider what they're going to need when they're 3 weeks old or older if they're going to be in the brooder a bit longer. So when you are looking at your brooder environment, to really make sure that you're fine tuning and getting a really good setup and providing a really good environment for them to be successful, you're going to need to turn your heat on at least 24 hours in advance. If you have a brooder that's not very well heated or is prone to drafts or anything like that, you may want to heat your brooder up 72 hours in advance. Basically, what you're going to do is heat up the environment and also heat up the shavings and heat up the flooring beneath that, because the chicks are going to feel everything from their feet. So you're going to want to just make sure that everything that they touch is also going to be warm. You're also going to want to monitor the air temp and the floor temp, the air quality, the humidity, and you may want to, if you have a large brooder, you may want to consider spot brooding, and I'll show a picture of that in a second. Or if you have drafts, you may want to consider spot brooding. Or if you have a pretty small brooder, we just call that whole house brooding if you just let them free go everywhere. And I'm a really strong proponent of eliminating corners when they first come into the brooder. That's just to kind of eliminate them from wanting to sit and huddle or pile in those corners, so that they may just eliminate it so that they don't have even the option to do it. No one likes coming in and finding that they have a pile of chicks that, and just having well-rounded corners from cardboard or wood, just eliminating at them to have access to corners, at least for the first week of their life. And you want to consider having good ventilation, a light schedule, and good biosecurity. So you really want to make sure that you minimize their risk to getting any diseases too. So some common issues that you may see that are related to management especially can be piling, starve out, stress. So piling is a lot of times caused by draft and corners, or cold bedding, some sounds. If there's obstacles in their way when they're walking, especially if there's an obstacle close to the wall, they may get kind of hung up in that wall, and that may actually cause them to pile. Because if one does it, the next one will come and the next one will come. And before you know it, you have a situation. So solutions obviously would be to just eliminate drafts and corners, and the obstacles and any sound that's being made. And then just making sure that you have adequate heat space. So for starve out, what I mean by starve out is when the chicks are first hatched out of the egg, they actually still have their yolk absorbed inside their abdomen. So if you open them up, you can physically see there's still a yellow yolk sac that's attached to their intestines. And so that is their food and water source when they are first, that'll last them from the day they hatch to day 3, day 4, sometimes day 5. And so if they do not find that food and water between, from 3 to 5 days, any time in between there, if they don't find food and water consistently, then they'll pass away, and then we'll call that starve outs. And so that can also happen a bit when they're older if you're changing things in their environment. So say you took away something like a feeder, you changed out all the feeders to a different style of feeder at the same time and didn't allow them to properly learn that they're going to be making some adjustments to a new feeder, then you may see starve outs from as far as 6 days after the change that you made. So just really making sure that you are teaching them and allowing them time to adjust. And so just really providing like lots of extra feed space, making sure that you have really slow changes. And then stress can be caused by the transportation. So, when you first get chicks, a lot of times they'll come in a box. They might come in the mail, or they might come from a delivery truck, or you may go pick them up. Just them from their experience of hatching, their experience of traveling to their new environment, and then getting into their new environment obviously is going to be really stressful for them. And so you're going to want to just make sure that you release them into their new environment as quickly as you can, and then making sure that everything that they need to do is very visible and accessible to them. So food and water especially, and then making sure that that temperature throughout your brooder is very even and warm enough for them to be comfortable. So just really making sure that their brooder is going to be really, really comfortable and a good environment for them will help relieve a lot of that stress. And if you have chicks that are really, really loud and really noisy, that's a really big sign of stress. So basically, what you can do for that, if they're just really not relaxing, give them a couple hours in their environment, and then you can probably darken it for a little bit, maybe like 30 minutes to an hour at the most. And that will help them to get adjusted and just kind of relax and calm down. So this is what I mean by spot brooding. So this is our chick brooder that we have at the ranch. We have a very, very large brooder. So, and we brood 2,400 chicks at a time in that brooder this year. So what we do is we split it up with these cardboard rings. So the cardboard is called brooder guard. We get it from QC Supply. It literally just comes in big rolls, and we just roll it all out and kind of sandwich it in the shavings. And we also have stands to help hold that cardboard up. And so then we're dividing these groups into groups of 600. So we have 4 groups of 600. So then each individual group is more, community. They have less space to run around. They don't need to go from one end to the other. Our brooder is 100 foot long, so that's a very, very far space for them to walk back and forth and get lost. So the benefits of spot brooding would be to just kind of bring that space a lot smaller for them, keep them closer to the food and water and the heat sources, and just really making sure that they're learning to eat and drink before we give them the entire brooder space after a week or so. So bird's eye view, this is kind of what it looks like in our brooder with the rings. So these red circles are the heaters. We have radiant heaters that are propane. And then, as you can see, the 4 groups of rings that we have. And then, like I said, I make slow changes to everything. So the first step I make is kind of just to introduce them to the full brooder, is to just eliminate a section of 2 of the rings. So then the 2 rings have us like about 3 feet of that cardboard is taken away. So the 2 rings on each end have access to each other, so they can walk back and forth. And then we slowly, wait a day, make another change, wait a day, make another change. And then after about 7 or 10 days, we give them full access to the brooder. So then they're old enough that they have adjusted well enough to where their food and water is, and they can handle learning, on their own. So so we brood at a large scale for pasture poultry. That is, there's obviously a lot larger farms out there in general in confinement, where they're brooding 30,000-40,000 at a time. But so for us, in the brooder environment, automation was a really big game changer. We have an automated feed line. We have heaters that have temperature probes on them. We have a computer that will tell the heater to turn on and off at certain temperatures of a schedule that I've programmed. We have automated ventilation, and we have automatic water. So this really allows us to save on labor. Obviously, that's not entirely attainable for some people to have automation in their brooders, especially if you're brooding out of only batches of 100 or so at a time. For our environmental controller, what I really like about having one is that it allows me to monitor the daily temperatures. It has a history log and everything like that that I can look back at yesterday's or last week's. Like I said, it also has ventilation controls, and I can also program a light schedule in there. And it, like I said, it's got a history, so it also will indicate any overuse or underuse of equipment. So in the wintertime, I really want to monitor, make sure that my heaters aren't running too long. In the summertime, I also want to make sure that my ventilation is running the appropriate amount of time too, because it's quite hot here in Arkansas. So we want to make sure that that's good and cooled off for them with circulation air and stuff like that. So another thing to really be considerate about in brooding is the litter management. So if you have shavings and pine shavings, especially like we do, they're pretty good at absorbing moisture. But if you are constantly noticing that you have wet shavings, or it's just really humid, basically you're going to want to just make sure that you are ventilating properly, you have good air circulation. Another thing that will save you money on litter will be tilling. And basically what you could do is just stir it up with a fork, or you can, if you have a large brooder, you can take a garden tiller through and just till underneath the water lines, stir up that bedding. And then for feed or bedding, you could consider bulk ordering in bulk, which is what we do. We have, like I said, we raise a lot of chicks on pasture. So it's just more cost effective for us to order in bulk rather than just individual bags. And then obviously, like with automation, there's positives and negatives. You want to really still make sure that you're frequently checking your brooder, making sure that they're okay, making sure that you're stirring them up and encouraging them to go eat and drink. And then good record keeping goes a long ways. You can look at your history of what you've done before, lessons learned, and then making sure that you have a power outage protocol. What do you do if the power goes out and it's cold at night? You need heating and air. And then I'm also a big proponent for vitamins and electrolytes, especially in the summertime, when it's really hot and the birds really need just that extra boost to kind of just get them a little bit more energy. So these two brooders are kind of, I just kind of have this here to show, this kind of where we've started and where we were in the middle. So the picture on the left with the layer chicks that you can see, those chicks are, we still have layers here on the ranch. We have them just enough to provide eggs for our dining hall. So we
Sam,
still raise them in a cattle trough. Yes.
we have a quick question. I'm going to go to Wyatt Johnson here, who's
Yeah.
raising his hand.
Okay. Sure. Yes.
Wyatt, do you have a question?
Can you hear
Maybe
me?
he. Yes.
I'm
Yep,
sorry,
I
I
can
hit the
hear you.
wrong button. I did not have a question.
Oh, you're fine. Okay. So like I was saying, the chicks on the left, we still use them in the cattle water trough. And so again, just be considerate about your space in there because they can quickly outgrow that. And so you can see one side I have the heat lamp, and then I have another side that's kind of the cooler side. So they can go under the heater for that to warm up, and then they can go over away from the heater if they want to, they can find their happy medium. So that's kind of really what's important for that cattle trough style. And then just making sure that your food and water is not directly underneath the heat source, because that may actually deter them from going that direction. So for the one that you can see on the right, these are our turkey poults. We used to brood them in a smaller shed. I can't quite remember if it was maybe like a 12 by 12 or 14 by 14 or something like that. And we would do about 500 in there. And then we would, slowly release them to another room that was the equivalent size and then introduce them to being day ranged outside. So you can kind of see our setup there. You can't really see, we have heat lamps. They kind of got cut off by the picture, I guess. I didn't, hindsight is 2020. If I would have taken a better picture, that would have been great. But you can just see there that we have heat lamps. I have them all the way around the outsides because those are going to be the coldest, draftiest spots. So I want to make sure that, those spots aren't too cold for them. And I also have one that's kind of in the center a little bit. So they have lots of space, lots of heat space, lots of feed space and water space. So these lines, these PVC lines that you see on the bottom are the water lines that we installed. So this is a better overview of the spot brooding that we have in our chick brooder. So this is just to kind of give you an idea of how spot brooding should be set up and divided. And you can kind of see there our heaters and our feeders and waters. So the green buckets that you see there are the Super Bowl feeders and the red feed flats. And it's kind of a blurry picture, but we have some white 1 gallon waters in there as well, that are the kind of the flip over kind. So those ones I would consider supplemental feed and water. And that is basically the just additional feed and water to give them extra feed and water space in the first week of life. So that equipment in there is is like removed after a little while. So, and again, that's going to be a slow change. So removing 1 out of every 3 feed flats, after the point of starvation. So after 5 days, remove 1, wait a day, remove 1 out of every 3 again, wait a day, remove 1 out of every 3 again until they're all gone. So, and same thing with the waters. So, and then this, just ignore the 4-leaf clover that I found that picture. So this is our bulk feed tanks that I was talking about. So we get bulk feed. Essentially, just a big feed truck comes, drops off however much feed we ordered. These bins in particular are hold 9 to 10 tons each. And you can kind of see this bin that's in the middle is attached to a white pipe that runs into the brooder. So if we go back to this picture, you can see on the end, there's a feed hopper on the end, and that drops the feed in from an auger from the outside, and then it automatically gets pulled in by motor way on the end of this line. So that's kind of what that is. And then these other 2 tanks that are on the end are for filling our grain carts that we have down in the pasture. So you can see the auger and the motor on the ends of those 2. So alternatives to having computers run your brooder would be these styles of controllers. So the one on the left is a clock. So you can run, so say you want the lights or something like that on the schedule, that clock you'll be able to schedule the lights to be on and off at a certain time of the day. For the one on the right, you may want to use that one to control your exhaust fans or your heaters. So those ones are programmed based on temperatures. So, and then these are kind of the next step up. These would be for brooders as large as ours. So these ones can control the ventilation, the temperature. It can even, you can even enter your mortality in there. It's ridiculous what you can do with these. And you can even, I think, program multiple barns on the one with the touchscreen on the right. But yeah, it's just something that's, more computery. The one on the right works more like an iPhone. The one on the left is more of like the old style with the clicky buttons and the arrows and up and down. So that's just really good for monitoring. So ventilation and air quality, I would say, is one of the most important things that a lot of people have difficulty with in their brooders. So if you are ventilating naturally, that's basically just open air, and providing them open air, opening windows or doors, or if you're brooding inside a cattle water trough, just having the top open.
Looks like she froze. We hope she comes back. I welcome any questions while we're waiting for her in the chat. We'll give her a minute.
Oh,
You're
okay,
back.
Sorry, I have no idea what happened. Let me see if I can pull up my presentation again.
While you're doing that, I had a quick question. You said that don't just peek in at them, kind of stir them up. Is that just to get them moving? Oh, she froze again. We'll just give Sam a minute to work on her issues on her end. Again, remind you of the chat. This will also be available on our YouTube channel. We also have one from last week on starting chicks and chicks laws that you're welcome to check out on our YouTube channel. I'm hoping Sam makes it back to us. There she's coming.
Okay, I think I'm back. I don't know,
I see
all
you.
of a sudden my Wi-Fi. Okay, my Wi-Fi is being, so now I'm on my hotspot on my phone, so, okay. Let's try this again. Try resharing again. Okay. All right. So, okay, so this is where we were. So ventilation, fresh air exchange is the main thing about that power ventilation. And you just for ventilation and air quality, you're really just going to want to monitor the main things would be CO2 especially. Ammonia is probably going to turn worse after your CO2 would be. So the highest point of that you would want your CO2 is probably going to be 2,000 in the summers and 3,000 in the winters. And then CO, like carbon monoxide, would be more so like if you have a gas leak. So that would be, a whole other story. So, and these are basically a couple tools that you can buy on Amazon. The laser pointer, especially would be great for monitoring the temperature of the shavings. And then the CO2 meter that's on the left is what I used. And that will also monitor the air temperature and the humidity. So these are just some steps. I'm gonna kind of assume that most people aren't using power ventilation. So if they want, they can take a look at this slide. But the power ventilation is more so like if you have a larger brooder. And so it's basically, again, just using, that fresh air exchange, manipulating that negative pressure with exhaust fans and pulling in fresh air. And so, and you can also combine that with circulation fans. So this is just a kind of like a picture that I have of it to kind of give people a little bit more of a visual, because I'm a visual type person. So you have at the bottom, you have that carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, the humidity, and the ammonia that I was talking about that are really important to monitor. And so you're going to have the incoming fresh air from the inlets that you can kind of see towards the ceiling. And then there's a circulation fan, so that air is going to be pulled up. The air is going to circulate and combine with the warm air that's in the ceiling up high. And then it's going to be pulled downwards by your exhaust fans that are kind of down low. So it's going to be pulling that fresh air after it's warmed up down to the birds and then outside, evacuating. So And then lighting, the main thing that you want to make sure with your lighting is that it's just really evenly distributed. You don't have a lot of shadows or dark areas. If they do have a dark area, you'll find that they'll tend to sit in the shadow. So, and then the schedule that I stick by, day 1 through 3 is 24 hours of light. So straight 72 hours of light the first 3 days. Although I will say I was recently talking with a nutritionist and she suggested that 23 hours of light for the first 3 days is actually better, because it'll give them that 1 hour of rest. And then, so basically the importance of that is that they have extra time to find that food and water. And it just gives them a really great chance or greater chance of success if they have just extra time to find that food and water. And then after day 4, you can slowly introduce, 1 hour darkness, wait a day, add another hour of darkness. So then you're going from 23 hours to 22 hours to 21 hours of light. And then just keep continuing that. If you're in pastured poultry, especially, you're going to want to meet that sunrise and sunset times before they move out to the pasture around 3 weeks. So I'm not a nutritionist. I stole this from our friend Jeff Maddox, who works at Fertrell. Basically for the starter feed though, and the brooder, what I look towards is the protein percentage. So that having that higher protein percentage when they're young is really important so that they can maintain and grow at the same time. So 20%, we feed at 1%. And then these are just kind of the basics of their requirements. So health issues that you're going to face is going to be pretty commonly dehydration. Like I was talking about, that's really common in the first couple days of their life. And that's primarily related to, if they didn't find that food and water. And so then there's a description of what that looks like. So ascites is round heart, or often called water belly. It's physically, if you open them up, their right side of their heart is going to be really like squishy and floppy feeling. So when you look at the heart, it's going to be kind of shaped like this, and this side's going to be really flabby if they have ascites. And then E. coli, it's going to be fibrin, which is kind of like white, cheesy, stringy kind of looking material inside them. Mold infection, you're going to see just really, really small nodules around their trachea or lungs, or around the air sacs. Rickets is another really common thing that you can see that's really related to their feed. So if they're not getting adequate feed, it's going to be a deficient in calcium or phosphorus or vitamin D. You're going to see them just really not walking well. They're going to be the ones that are sitting and lame, and wing, they call them wing walkers sometimes because they're literally propelling themselves around through their wings. And then just making sure that your management and your biosecurity are really up to par in your brooder, because otherwise that can lead them to be more susceptible to bacterial or viral infections. Just anything as simple as, not providing enough food and water for them, not giving them food and water all the time, or just having the introduction of rodents to them. So just making sure that you have, you're limiting what's going in and out of your brooder. And then so just briefly, the solutions to these issues that you may see, dehydration obviously is making sure that they have a lot of water all the time, and then equal temperature distribution. If it's in a cold spot or a hot spot, they might not want to go towards the water. And then ascites, making sure is caused by ventilation. If they're grouping or piling, sometimes that can cause ascites as well. So it's gonna inhibit them from having adequate air, and that is what causes round heart. And then E. coli is usually a secondary infection. So if you do see E. coli, it's likely going to be triggered by something else, some other sort of infection. Mold infection, making sure you eliminate mold in the brooder or eliminate their access to any mold. Feed shavings can have mold. Rickets is typically to feed. So if you discover that you have rickets, what do I do? Can't get new feed or something like that. Adding vitamins or electrolytes to their water. I think TSC even sells like something you can sprinkle on top of their feed. And then again, just making sure you have really good biosecurity to prevent any diseases. So this is a hospital box that I have. So these are poults, turkey poults. So this is literally just the delivery box. I like having these set up because I can put the few in there that need that extra TLC. And so they have their little food, they have their water, and they don't need to compete with hundreds more extra birds. So I can give them that extra attention they need. They don't need to walk very far to find their food and water. And then they can become stronger if they're weak, or if they're injured, they just need extra attention. They can be in that box until they're better and they can be reintroduced to the flock. So like I said, we brood in a barn, so then we need to transport them to the pasture. So what that kind of looks like for us, for the chicks, is that we corral a group of them into a pen using these crates that you can kind of see. We divide them into a couple different groups so that one or two people in each section can put about 10 birds into these crates. And then it's pretty physical. We carry those crates from inside the brooder to a trailer, and then we drive that trailer down to the pasture, and then we unload them into the coops that we have on pasture. And then just basically making sure that you have really slow, controlled movements. You're not scaring the birds. You shouldn't be chasing any birds. We literally are just kneeling right next to the birds and we just grab them, just really slow, quick, easy. Just minimizing them jumping and flapping. You're going to have some of that, obviously, but just really trying to keep that to a minimum. And so then if you guys are interested in this style of transport crate, there's a link to that at the bottom. 3T sells them. So again, this is just kind of a bird's eye view of our catch pen. So over here where there's the yellow lines, and then we have these catching crates that are kind of the army green color. So we make, 3 or 4 groups. And then we basically, one person per group typically will catch, however many birds. And then we load them all up and then we bring them down and then bring in another group into that yellow pen crate pen, and then, just keep repeating the process until we have no more birds. So, and then this is how we load our turkeys to the pasture. Not really a good picture because I have a feeder in the way, but essentially if you're loading them, you're going to want to make sure that you eliminate anything that's going to be in their walking path. And you can kind of see here we have these boards that we made just to kind of create a funnel that'll go directly to the trailer, to just basically have more control of the group of turkeys that we have. We use flags made out of PVC pipe and an orange garbage bag, and so we just wave those nice and calmly, and that will kind of herd the birds onto the trailer. So again, making sure that you're really making controlled movement, slow movement, you're not over flagging that you're not causing the birds to jump and flap and injure themselves or injure you. There shouldn't be any running or yelling or anything like that, just really small, controlled, calm movements. And so we will take usually groups of like 50 to 100 at a time, and we'll push them up into that trailer and then come back and get another group of 50 to 100, push them up, and just keep repeating that until the trailer is full. And so then obviously just consider, if you're in Arkansas like me, avoiding the heat of the day, because that trailer can get quite hot. So, and then just a little bit of shameless plug. We have a Heifer USA YouTube channel. We also have in-person events and courses. We have a Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and our website if you just scan that QR code. And so then just some related videos I've kind of just taken screenshots of here if anyone would be more interested in looking at, you know, what we do exactly and how we do things exactly. So this will give you a better visual idea than just a short presentation here. So awesome. Cool. So that concludes that.
I had too many questions come in, but if you talked about making sure you go in and not just peek in at them, but to kind of mess with them a bit, what is the theory behind that?
So making sure that you are stirring them up and physically getting them up to you know, getting them up and moving basically will encourage them to, you know, get up and go like, you know, yeah, I'm awake. Okay, I'm hungry. I'm gonna go eat and drink. And so that'll just really encourage them to go find that food and water, and thus it'll increase their growth production. So
Yeah, it's an excellent idea. I've always been trained to be as quiet as possible and don't mess with them. So yeah, I can see to get them just kind of moving around and not piling up, and yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, I only usually deal with like 100 to 200. I don't deal with the massive quantities, but yeah, I need to change my ways a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Sam, for coming to South Dakota and talking to us about
Yeah.
chicks and brooding. I learned a lot, and I'm sure our visitors have, and we will put this out on our YouTube channel, and I welcome people to do it.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you so much. This was good to talk about. I love talking about brooding.
Yes. And again, our presentation today was funded through a collaboration agreement with the NRCS and the South Dakota Specialty Producers Association to promote sustainable living. And I hope everybody has dates. Feel free, please check out the South Dakota Specialty Producers Association webpage at sdspecialtyproducers.org and check out our YouTube channel at SDSPA. Thank you. Thank you, Sam.